Hello, my friends. Welcome to Journey of Awakening. My name is David, and today I'm going to share with you my life-changing Kentucky ayahuasca experience. So I'm so excited to share this with you. I wanted to film this literally since the day I got back from Kentucky, but I quickly realized that some of the most profound, transformative parts of this experience were actually happening in the following months and the healing that was taking place there. So I wanted to wait to give you some context. So I waited about 6 months. It's been about 6 months since my ceremony, and I reviewed all of my notes that I took, and so everything's kind of fresh in my mind so I can share with you today. So let's get started. So what is ayahuasca? Ayahuasca is a psychedelic brew that's been used in the Amazon, used in South America for thousands of years, and it contains the active ingredient DMT, or dimethyltryptamine. So DMT is often referred to as the spirit molecule because of the profound spiritual experiences and insights that it gives to the people who use it. So in addition to the spiritual aspect, ayahuasca is also very well known for giving people profound healing experiences, helping them resolve trauma from earlier in their life, helping them overcome addiction, helping them overcome depression and all sorts of different mental disorders. So this stuff is really powerful, extremely healing, and there's so many reports of ayahuasca being this life-changing experience for many people. So as someone who's interested in doing inner healing, someone who's interested in spirituality, I've been interested in ayahuasca for years. So I finally decided it was time. I was starting to go through a period of healing and a period of awakening. And I realized that I was ready for a transformative experience. I was ready for a radical shift in my life. And I'm so glad I did it. So leading up to this experience, about a week before the actual ceremony, I had my first spiritual awakening. So this was my realization of God. So don't get confused by this word God. By God, I just mean the universe or reality is what I'm talking about here. All of those words are synonymous to me. And if you want to hear more about that, go check out the video I posted a couple days ago called Direct Experience of God, My First Awakening. So that was sort of the precursor to this ayahuasca experience, and this could not have come at a better time because it led into another awakening which was deeper and so amazing and so healing for me. So I drive to Kentucky back in September, and it was about an 8-hour drive for me, and I get there, and so what I signed up for was a group ceremony. So basically, there's this room. We're all in one room, and there's like 10 other people plus the instructors. There's 2 assistants. Their names were Sandy and Pat, and then the head minister was named Demian. And first of all, before I forget, the staff was so amazing. This whole experience was so amazing. They were so professional, so loving, so helpful, and they made everyone feel so comfortable. And I cannot recommend Peaceful Mountain Way enough. So thank you to everyone at Peaceful Mountain Way. And so basically we got there, we all kind of sat in a circle, and we shared why we're here. We shared what are our intentions for this ayahuasca experience. And, everyone basically was there for the same reason. Everyone was there for healing. Everyone was there because they knew, they felt called to this, because they heard about all the healing, transformative experiences, and their intuition was telling them, just like mine was telling me, that this is going to be an experience that will move you forward and help heal you. So, and I was really antsy at this point. I was really excited to start the ceremony. And before I forget, I also want to mention that the way this works is ayahuasca is illegal in America, but under the First Amendment, we have freedom of religion, and if we can use ayahuasca as a religious sacrament. So the way that works is I actually had to become a member of the Ocklawaha Native American Church, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. But when you become a member of this church, you can use ayahuasca as a religious sacrament, and we're protected by the First Amendment. So we all shared our experiences, and then it was time to start the ceremony. And I've heard, ayahuasca is not very great tasting. And I figured, it can't be that bad. I've tried, terrible things before that weren't as bad as they sounded. Let me tell you, this was one of the most foul tasting things I've ever experienced. It was like you took some mud, put it in a bowl, and then added some muddy water to that, and added a handful of powdered chalk, and then topped it off with moldy prune juice. It was absolutely disgusting. The grainy texture, the taste, everything awful. 0 out of 5 stars for the taste. But anyways, I got the dose down, and I was, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for this to take effect. They say it typically takes 30 to 60 minutes for the effects to start taking place. So I'm kind of just sitting on my mat, sort of meditating. Again, I'm really antsy, I can't wait. And they lit some sage and said a prayer before the ceremony, and I was kind of just oh no, I hate the smell of sage, and you're supposed to go outside, so it's I'm kind of stuck with this nasty smell, and I was just sort of irritated right off the bat. And so about an hour goes by, and they say once the music changes, because they start off with some peaceful flute music, and then it transitions to some hardcore shamanic drumming, and it brings you really deep into the experience. But so about an hour goes by, and I'm not really feeling much, and I get up to talk to Demian, the minister, and I'm kind of asking maybe should I have another dose? Because they say if you feel like you want to go deeper and you want to have another dose, you can do that. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll have another dose. And I was getting ready to do that, and I was talking to him, and I started feeling nauseous. And then I purged in my bucket. They give you, buckets because ayahuasca is notorious for making you purge a lot. And that's one thing I was really afraid of because I hate being nauseous. I hate getting sick. I hate throwing up. So I was really not looking forward to that. But I will say it was not nearly as bad as I expected, because the way it worked for me was that I would get sick, I would get nauseous for maybe a minute or two, and then I would purge, I would feel this epic release, and then all the nausea was gone, and I would go deeper into the experience every single time. So not as bad as I expected. Anyways, I was talking to Demian, and then I purged for the first time, and I started to feel the effects a little bit, and it felt kind of like a slight buzz, almost like I took a few shots of liquor and maybe, smoked some marijuana. That's kind of what it felt like. And it wasn't anything crazy, but I'm like, okay, I can handle this. This is pretty mild. I want to go deeper into the experience. So I had my second dose, and not much really happened. I kind of just waited around for a while, and after about a half hour, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll try something else. And they say eating can help bring on the experience. So I had a spoonful of peanut butter, and still waited another half hour and didn't really feel much. I had a third dose then, and at this point I'm just kind of waiting. I felt a little bit weird, but nothing profound was happening. I remember just sitting on the floor reading the Tao Te Ching, and great book by the way, but I was just basically sober after three bowls of ayahuasca, and I was what the heck is going on? And so I was getting kind of frustrated at this point. I'm you know what, I guess whatever, I'm just gonna go to bed. I'm gonna eat some soup and then call it a night. So I had a bowl of soup, and then I go to sit down on my mat, and then I realized that this whole time, this entire experience, from the moment I got here, I've been in so much resistance. Even before the ceremony, I'm I can't wait to start the ceremony. And then we were starting the ceremony, I'm the sage. And then after I drank the ayahuasca, I'm why isn't kicking in yet? I was just looking for some visual effects, or looking for anything. And I was just frustrated because I wasn't allowing this moment to be exactly how it is. I was trying to make this moment something else. I was looking for a different kind of experience. And I'm oh. So I grabbed my journal and I wrote down, what am I resisting? So as I wrote that, I started to feel kind of weak. And I was looking at this beautiful tapestry on the wall. And it was all this sacred geometry. And as you know, right after I wrote that, it started looking really, really beautiful and started glowing and just like spinning and shifting. I'm like, whoa. And then I felt this enormous wave of like this heavy tingling sensation come over my entire body, like a weighted blanket, except it was like tingly and electric. It was a crazy feeling. And in that moment, I just melted. Like I just like leaned over onto the floor, like, whoa. And instantly I was like in this state of surrender, of allowing this moment, and everything around me looked so beautiful. Nothing changed. Like everything looked exactly the same, except I realized how beautiful it is and how miraculous it is. And I became aware that, actually I didn't, I'll save this for the second night, but I just totally surrendered, and it was the most beautiful, peaceful experience that I had ever had. And so as I was laying there in this surrender, I was some questions came to my mind. I was wondering, like, okay, how do I reconcile this experience of surrender with also taking action? Because I was just laying there doing nothing, and it's like, okay, like this is great, this is beautiful, but like I can't just like live my life like doing nothing and surrendering and just being here. So I'm like, you know, how do I reconcile this with actually like going and taking action in my life? So these were some big questions. This is a big question, and you know, eventually I dozed off, and then so the second day we woke up, we shared about our experiences a little bit, and we went on. Everyone who wanted to went on this hike. We hiked up this mountain, and it was beautiful, and then it was time for the second ceremony. And this time, going into the ceremony, I kind of thought to myself, all right, I learned my lesson. I'm going to totally surrender the experience. I'm going to totally just be present, allow whatever is happening right now. That was my big lesson that I learned the day before, and it was so important. And right away, I was just in a great mood because I was just totally just present and allowing this moment to be. And so I was talking to people, I was doing some yoga, doing some meditation, right after we drank the first cup of ayahuasca. And I remember seeing Pat and Sandy they were kind of mirroring each other, like doing this little dance. And without really thinking about it, I walked up to them and I just joined them. I started doing their little dance with them. And, you know, it's not really a big deal, but for me, that was kind of a shift, because I had always been so caught up in worrying about what other people think of me that I never really let go of the outcome. I never really lived just to be in this moment. I had lived I felt like I was always chasing some sort of an outcome. And so I just decided to let go and just be in that moment. And that was really fun. I felt like I was just kind of letting loose. And, you know, a few minutes later, Pat and Sandy were playing some instruments in the center of the room. And I think Sandy gestured a drum to me. And there was like the intense shamanic drumming was playing over the speakers. So I go over there and I grab the drum and I start drumming along with them. And as I was banging on this drum, I started to get really tingly, and that heavy weighted blanket sensation sort of came over me. And I'm just like, whoa. And it came on like even stronger this time. And I just turned to Sandy and I said, I surrender the drum, and just pushed it to her. And I just laid back on the floor, like I just plopped down, like, and totally let go. And what happened next was beyond anything I could ever describe or even begin to describe. The best way that I can describe this is like somebody put the wide angle lens on my consciousness. So, you know, this is the normal lens, your normal experience of reality, and then the wide angle lens is when you could experience things from a wider perspective, and you could experience things that were previously outside of your field of view. So I did start to have subtle visuals and hallucinations. Very, very slippery and elusive and hard to describe. They weren't extremely vivid or anything for me. Although the subtle ones that I saw were so beautiful and infinitely complex, and it was so like difficult to imagine how my brain could be creating this. And ultimately the conclusion that I came to is my brain is not creating this. But at the time it was utterly mind-blowing. And I had sort of like these visions, and I remember seeing Exodia, which is like a character or a monster from Yu-Gi-Oh! And I thought that was so funny. I didn't realize what it was till like weeks later, but I thought that was really interesting. And what this felt like was another direct experience of God. So not God in the way that like, oh, I saw like this entity and like that entity is God, but like, no, I was just aware that everything around me is God, like the awakening I described previously. Except this time it was accompanied by an even a much higher level of consciousness and awareness. And I remember, this was such a beautiful experience, and I was so amazed and awestruck, and at the same time I was terrified. Because I was just laying there like, oh my God, and like I can't believe it. I can't believe the depth of reality. It's so much deeper than anything I ever had imagined, and this scared me because this threatened my identity and my worldview and who I thought I was, and my ego. So I turned to Pat, and I remember saying to her, I'm kind of scared to go. This is after, I can't remember if this is after 1 or 2 doses, but I'm like, I'm kind of scared to go any deeper. Like, and beside, like, my intention wasn't to come here and like have some like awakening to God. Like, this is not what I intended on. My intention was to like heal. I had like this pain in like my gut that I didn't know what it was, and I wanted to like heal this pain and heal my emotions. But I'm having all these insights into metaphysics and God. Like, what is this? Like, should I shift my experience and like try to control this? And then eventually I realized like that's so silly. I just need to let go and surrender to this experience. This is exactly what I need to be experiencing in order to heal. So I did that, and I decided to have another dose of ayahuasca. So I had a third one, and eventually I had 5 doses total, and each one took me deeper than the last. And so I started having some very profound metaphysical insights. And these are going to sound insane to someone who's never experienced something like this, to someone who's never had experienced ego dissolution, especially to someone who's never done psychedelics. This will sound absolutely insane. And I will preface this with, you don't believe anything I'm saying here. What I will claim is that you can actually experience these things and verify them for yourself. You can do an empirical investigation into the things that I'm saying, but to believe me would be silly. But here's what I experienced. So I realized that my entire reality, my entire perception, my field of view, and me, well, actually not me, but my entire perception and field of view was one substance. Everything is made out of the one substrate that is reality or God or the universe. It's all just one thing. And that I sort of viewed reality as sort of like this dream-like ethereal material that was sort of just a projection that was just manifested out of infinite power and intelligence. So, and this is, what I'm describing here does not do this justice at all. Ultimately, what I'm saying is not true, because what actually was the case cannot be communicated at all. And I think that's important, when you're listening to me or you're listening to any spiritual teacher, no matter how great they are. Truth, with a capital T, like the absolute, cannot be communicated through our words. So believing scriptures or believing words and beliefs about the truth will just bring you farther into delusion. So, but these were so profound at the time, and I was just completely shocked. And I also had really profound insights into the nature of feminine and masculine energy. So specifically how they related to my own behavior and human behavior. So I started to understand, and I had never really had like a big interest in feminine and masculine energy. Like I knew a lot of people in the spiritual field kind of talked about these things, but I'm like, what's the big deal? But I realized like how like foundational they are to my behavior. So I realized that masculine energy was essentially the driving force. This was me basically using my will and penetrating the world, if you will. And feminine energy is total surrender, total love, total being. And in that moment, I also realized the question that came up the night before about how do I reconcile desire with surrender? And what I realized the answer is that I was sort of confusing surrender with a lack of desire. Like, oh, I don't need to change anything. I can just let this be right here. But also, if a desire were to come up and you were to resist that desire, that would be the opposite of surrender. So real surrender is also surrendering to your desires and surrendering to the action and the surrendering to the flow of what's happening right now, not just not doing anything. That's, that can be surrender as well, but you can also surrender to what is occurring and what you are doing and what you want to do. So that was a really profound insight. And so one of the most important parts about this for me was towards the end of the night when I was laying on my mat, and I felt this pain in my gut, like I mentioned, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ask myself, like, what is this pain? And I started just feeling into it, and I saw this hallucination. I saw this entity in my mind. It was like this orange outline of like a worm or like a slug kind of dude, and immediately I recognized that entity represented my pain, and I recognized that I had been neglecting and ignoring my pain, and basically that pain was a part of me, and I had been neglecting and ignoring myself rather than loving that part of me. So I realized that it was self-neglect rather than self-love. So I just laid there for the first time, loving that part of myself, loving that pain, and it was so healing, so beautiful. I felt so much warmth flowing into my body, and I think that's one of the things that really triggered this healing and journey of self-love that I went on in the following months. I started realizing how important self-love was, and I started reading the book Shadows Before Dawn by Teal Swan. Amazing, amazing book. It's like a manual on how to love yourself, and it completely transformed my life. But so that was the main parts of the experience. There's so much more. I can't really talk about everything in one video, but it was so profound, so life-changing. And again, I want to mention that the real transformation happened in the following months. So, I basically got back from my experience, and, in the next a couple days later, some like deep emotional trauma came up from like my childhood and my past that I didn't really, I sort of kind of knew was there, but I didn't really acknowledge it, and I didn't do anything to heal it or accept it or to love it. And what I found out was that this deep trauma and all of these beliefs that were created because of this trauma were essentially running my entire life. They were essentially placing this cage of fear around me that stopped me from being who I wanted to be. And that's basically where all the pain results from in my life. So this journey of accepting myself, this journey of loving myself, becoming more conscious, discovering these different parts of my subconscious mind, bringing the light of consciousness into the dark of the subconscious is the process of healing. And it has been so rewarding. And I sort of expected those things to happen while I was on the ayahuasca, but it's more like it triggered something in my brain or in my mind for that to happen. Because it did take, it's not something that could have happened overnight. It was a journey that took months and months, and it's of course it's still continuing. So also this ayahuasca experience really opened the door for deeper awakenings later on. And without this experience, I don't know where I'd be. So I'm so grateful for it. And if you're someone who's interested in trying ayahuasca, I I would never try to convince someone to do this because this is a really intense, really life-changing experience. But if you are someone who's drawn to this already, I will say that this is one of the most beautiful healing experiences of my life, and I would highly recommend it if you are interested. So, one of the biggest takeaways is that there's so much more than meets the eye to life. We think we're just, this human being having this experience of being a biological organism, and we're here to survive, but it goes much deeper than that. We're not just these dumb biological beings that are just a reaction of chemicals, that are the product of the Big Bang and evolution. There's a deeper intelligence to it. There's a deeper intelligence to you. And life is really so magical. Like, can you just look around? Can you see what all of this is without all of the labels, without all of the stories, the imagination behind all of this? Can you just notice what this is and be in this present moment and experience the magic and the beauty of it? Because that's what spirituality is about. That's what awakening is about, is becoming aware of truth. And the truth is what's right in front of you. The truth isn't some concept that you reach in your mind. The truth is what you are experiencing right now. But do you realize how significant it is? That's what this is about. So if you like this episode, if you enjoyed this, leave a like. And if you want to follow the journey, if you want to hear about some of these deeper insights that I've been having, and you're interested in spirituality, that's what I'm all about. I'm all about getting to the deepest truths and experiencing these for myself, and then turning around and trying to help you along your path so that you don't get too misguided, and that you can essentially, and again, I want to say, I don't know anything. I really know nothing. I'm just a student of this path, and I can only do my best to help guide you in the right direction. But ultimately, you have to listen to yourself. You have to listen to your own inner guide or your own inner guru, because ultimately that is what's going to lead you to the truth. Nobody can give it to you. If I could give you the truth, if I could give you enlightenment on a silver platter, I would love to. But that's not the way it works. You have to wake up. You have to discover this for yourself, because waking up is really just like waking up in a dream. There's a reason people use this analogy. If you've ever had a lucid dream, so that moment where you become lucid and you're like, oh, I'm dreaming. That's exactly what awakening is like in real life, except you realize that you're in the dream of life. And, when you're not directly conscious of these things, it just sounds like I'm playing word games here. But if you have the intuition, if you have the wisdom to see the intelligence behind this, the intelligence behind this existence, then you're in for a very profound, beautiful, meaningful journey, my friend. And no one's going to make you go on this journey. There's no moral reason why you would have to. If you don't mind just being a normal, everyday human, and especially in this age of, depression and anxiety and mental illness, that's okay. We're all here to do our own thing. We're all here to play a role and have the experience that we're having. That's why we're having it. But if you want to wake up from this dream, if you want to start purging all of these illusions, if you want to start waking up to truth, I encourage you to go down the spiritual path for yourself. Again, no one's going to make you. This is really, you are the ultimate authority here. So that's it. I'm kind of rambling at this point. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a beautiful day.